Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be showing from the final round of this year's Tata Steel Masters. In the previous video I mentioned that there is a 5-way tie, so 5 people are tied for first place with 7.5 points, and one of those, two of those 5 are Wijk and Vidit Gujrathi, so a win in the final round would go a long way towards winning the Tata Steel. Now if it's the sole lead, then of course you win right out of the ending of the round, but if it's a tie, then they go into tie breaks, and it can be as many people as possible. So it can be a five people playoff, it can be a 6 people playoff, 7 people playoff. These are the rules for this year. But let's check it out. Vidit, like I said, along with Pragnananda, the only 2 players undefeated going into the final round, and Wijk already lost 2 games. He lost to Gukesh and Firuja, but he's on a pretty good streak. Out of his last 4 games, he won 3. So it's gonna be very unpleasant for Vidit facing Wijk in good form with the white pieces. So let's check it out. Wijk has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to d4. We have pawn to d5 by Vidit, knight f3, we have knight to f6 and pawn to e3. The Colle system, and there are a couple of moves that are usually played here. One is e6, then bishop to f5 is played, bishop to g4 is played, and the 4th most popular is the one that Vidit plays, and that is pawn to c5. So okay, pawn to c3 and now e6. We have bishop to d3, knight b to d7, and now knight b to d2. We have bishop to d6 and both players castle. So castles, rook to e1 and queen to c7, putting pressure on that h2 pawn. Wijk strikes in the center with pawn to e4, and Vidit now captures on d4 as the pawn has been weakened by the advancement of the e pawn. So c captures, we have d captures on e4, and now knight captures on e4. And while you could continue happily capturing on e4, the problem is, let's say you go captures, this rook is incredibly well placed here, and even ideas like a knight f6, there's a rook to h4. Now if h6 to sort of make it a little bit easier to breed, already bishop captures on h6 is winning for white. For example, g captures queen d2, and that is it. So you have to be very careful here. Vidit goes pawn to b6, and now bishop to g5 by Wijk, putting pressure on the knight here. So now knight captures on e4, rook captures, and bishop to b7, attacking Wijik's rook on e4, rook to c1 first, a nice Zwischenzug, attacking the queen, getting the rook into the game, queen to b8, and now rook to h4. And Wijk has a lot of pieces in front of Vidit's king, and not a lot of pieces are defending that black king. And here, the position has been reached before, and g6 is a known move. But it's one that is easily countered. If g6, queen to a4 just wins the game. There's no good way to defend the knight. You cannot play anything on d8. You can't put a queen on c7 due to the rook. You can't move the knight anywhere. The pawn prevents it. Here the bishop prevents it. Best you have is to play b5, give up the pawn, and then play bishop to c8. But this is objectively lost for black. So Vidit plays the absolute best move, and that is pawn to f5. But even a best move in this position is, well, suboptimal to say the least. And it is now, as of move 15, that we have a completely new game. Wijk goes bishop to c4. Now the e6 pawn has been weakened, and how is Vidit to defend it? He goes queen to e8, but now queen to b3, just putting pressure on the e6 pawn. And the problem is, it seems like maybe you could capture on f3. The problem with such a move is that there's queen captures on f3, and then after queen to g6, okay, you will get the queen into the game with an attack on the bishop. Bishop to f4, for example, captures, and rook 8 to c8. Okay, it can be played, but still white will be better, and there's this long-term problem of the pawn on e6 being weak, and the king is on g8, so you can't really move it to e5. But Vidit played a weaker move. He played king to h8, bishop captures on f3, although ugly, it had to be played. King to h8 just loses the game on the spot for Vidit. And incredible, this is move 17. So just in the previous game, we mentioned that when he was playing Nodirbek Abdusattor, Nodirbek played that weird bishop to a6 move, then followed it by bishop to c4, then bishop to d3. It was just, casual bishop loitering, and Vidit ended up winning the game very nicely. But here already on move 17, he is lost. And Wei Yi just puts a rook on e1, and he says, I will take this pawn, there's nothing you can do about it. So how do you continue here? Now bishop captures on f3, although it does make sense. Rook captures on e6 is just game over. There's really no good square for the queen. Everything is covered either by the by the rook or by the bishop. You can't go bishop queen f7. You can't go queen to d8. You might play something like queen to c8, but then rook captures on d6. You take you take back the piece, and now it seems like, okay, bishop b7. We just traded pieces. No, there's rook captures on h7 check, and after king captures, queen to h3 is checkmate. As the bishop covers g8 and the rook covers the g6 square. So that's the true problem here. So Vidit played bishop to e4. It cuts off the rook from the attacking the e6 pawn. It is a pawn sacrifice, but there is no way for you to save that pawn. So okay, bishop captures on e6, and now queen to g6. Vidit will try to organize an attack against Wei Yi's king at the price of that pawn. So okay, bishop back to d2, and now knight to f6, getting the knight into the attack. Notice that if, of course, bishop captures, you can't capture with the g-pawn, but the queen is defending the knight. So knight to f6, getting more pieces into the attack, and now knight to g5, just extremely unpleasant by Wei Yi. Vidit goes pawn to f4, which is the top move recommended by the engine, but it still doesn't help him. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the only winning move for Wei Yi while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this beautiful maneuver. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook captures on h7. That's right, you give up a little bit of material, but then you will gain a little bit of material, as the knight here is overloaded, guarding on h7 and defending the bishop on e4. So, of course, you're not going to capture with the queen, you capture with the knight, and now comes knight captures on e4. Grabbing that piece, we have pawn to f3, now threatening checkmate, but just pawn to g3. And you don't really have time to go for some sort of a checkmating attack, as the bishop on d6 is hanging. And even if you really wanted to something like, well, not obviously queen to h6, the bishop covers that square, but even if you played something like queen h5, knight captures on d6, you still can't play queen h3, the bishop covers that square. So there's just no good way for your queen to get to the g2 square. So bishop to e7 is played, getting the bishop out of harm's way, and now pawn to d5. So the weak king isn't Vidit's only problem. There's also the problem of the passed d pawn. We have rook a to d8, and now queen to a4. Just, you know, playing useful moves. There's nothing for Vidit to do on the king side or in the center of the board. This bishop pawn combo here is just too strong. He's now shifting his attention towards those queenside pawns. So Vidit plays pawn a5. Now comes queen to c6, going after the b6 pawn. Bishop to b4, offering a trade of bishops, and of course just captures on b4. A captures, and now pawn to h4. Not going for captures right away. If you go queen captures on b6 right away, then of course rook captures on d5 is the trick. Now bishop captures, and you lose your queen here. So of course Wei Yi, the tactical beast that he is, he's not going to fall for that. He goes pawn to h4. Now comes rook to a8, going after the a2 pawn, but now knight to d6, eyeing that f7 square. And now the problem is, well, it's the problem since Vidit played king to h8, there's no move for black. Every move loses. If you go for rook captures on a2, which was the initial idea, then knight to f6 check, and after rook captures, there's queen to e8 with check. And now if you move the rook, you blunder the queen. So knight to f8, but just bishop captures on f7. And after the queen moves to sort of guard the knight here, bishop to e6, and now queen to h5 will end the game, as the bishop covers the g8 square. You could prolong it a little bit, but only by a little bit. So instead, rook to a7, putting more defenders to that f7 square, and now just queen captures on b6. Now the capture is possible. The rook is hanging, so rook captures on a2, and now just queen to c7. Putting pressure on that 7th rank, also guarding the a7 square, so the rook cannot go back, and also, well, not going to spoil it for you, knight to f6 was played, and now knight to f7 with check, king to h7, and now knight back to e5, attacking Vidit's queen, and Vidit moves the queen to h6. There's a very interesting line here where Vidit could sacrifice the queen, but the problem is the rook on a2 is, well, sort of hanging. Look at this. And the problem is, if it wasn't, you could play it. Queen captures and g3 check, f captures, f2 check, king captures, and now knight captures on d5, opening up a discovery here while picking up the queen, and, well, also allowing the bishop to capture your rook. So that's the problem here. You will move the king, black knight will capture the queen on c7, but now after all of this, bishop captures on a2, and white will just be up a full bishop. So that's the problem. So Vidit plays queen to h6, and now comes queen to c2 with check, pawn to g6, and now just knight captures on g6, saying you've got nothing here. If you capture, of course, bishop to f5 will win the queen. So what can you do here? Vidit, well, his time went down all the way to maybe 5 seconds on the clock. He played rook f to a8, but it doesn't help. Just knight to e5 with check, king to g7, and now queen to c7 with check. And he was in this position on move 38 that Vidit Gujrathi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So another brilliant masterpiece by this well, true master of attacking chess, Wijk. I think every game that he won, it was just you know, no reverse gear, and opponent has to resign in face of certain doom. Checkmate is coming here. If you go king to f8, of course queen to f7 is checkmate, and if you go the other way, it doesn't really help you because knight to f7 check wins the queen, and there is no counterplay here for black. So brilliant stuff by Wijk here, taking down the undefeated Vidit. Yeah, he is now in sole lead of the tournament, but other games are also being played. Other games are also about to finish, and I just realized that one of the games that we were really watching has finished. So not gonna spoil it. It will probably be the second video that I will show. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But for now, it is Wijk who is in the lead. And let me just check what does this mean for the world top 10 standings. Yeah, Wijk overtook Vidit. Vidit is no longer in the world top 10, and now Wijk is world number 9 with 2754 on the live ratings list. Well, incredible stuff by Wijk at 2754.8. Brilliant stuff. So yeah, that's the game. The master of attack. There you have it, Wijk. I still have to show a couple of his games after the tournament is over because I wasn't able to show all of them. So yeah, stay tuned for that as well. And we are continuing onto the other games from the final round of this year's Tata Steel. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Lana is the best wife in the world, Samuel Kane, Gerhard Henkelman, Hans Anderson, and David Gasparian for their contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing, well, with more rounds from the final round of this year's Tata Steel. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.